So, hello everyone. I'm very glad to welcome you all. My name is Vlad Bagnyuk. I'm Community Marketing Manager at Developer Share. Follow us on social media networks to follow our job opportunities, activities, and future webinars. Also, a recording of this webinar will be available there. Links to our social media accounts you can easily find in your email. And welcome the speaker of our webinar, Paul Grossman.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vlad, for that wonderful introduction. And I'll get started over here. My name is Paul Grossman. I am known on Twitter as the Dark Arts Wizard. And today we're going to be showing a presentation on the secrets of low-code automation. Let me see. We've got this over here. I should be sharing my screen over here. I've got that. And let me just check, Vlad, everybody, can you guys see my screen? It's always a good check to start off with.
Yeah, I see.
Awesome, cool. All right, so I'm going to remove my Magic Wizard's hat over here, and we're going to get started off with this presentation and get us started over here. So there's the secrets of low-code test automation. As I said, my name is Paul Grossman, the Dark Arts Wizard up on Twitter. And if you want to see some cool videos about the stuff that I've been doing for the last 20 years, you can check me out at YouTube and just go look at Paul Grossman, the Dark Arts Wizard. That means I've got enough followers that I get my own unique URL, which I'm pretty proud of over there. A little bit about myself before we get started over here. I've been doing automation for 20 years. I'm a SDET, actually a test automation architect. So if you've got a automation framework or you're doing some sort of record and playback, I'm the kind of guy who jumps in there and says, let me show you how we can reduce our maintenance so we have more time to write more test cases and catch more bugs, or on the other way, ensure that your application is staying up more often than being down and losing your company money. I'm also an RPA champion. RPA stands for robotic process automation. And in that case, the difference between that and being a test automation engineer is that we're actually making utilities to try and generate some sort of data or automate a manual process that's kind of tedious. So we're not really looking for it to break down. We're looking for it to be up and running and get information passed from one place to another. Been doing this for about 20 years. I've worked in multiple different languages. Started off with a tool called Windrunner, which I have sitting on my desk up here behind me. That was 20 years ago. It was a C++ language. Then I moved into UFT, which is VB script. I'm the only guy who brags about being able to pull in a paycheck for 16 years working in the basic programming language. A wonderful language that some of us older developers now learned back in the 1980s and 90s. I moved on to that to Selenium, Java for about 2 or 3 years. And then most currently, I've been working for about 2 years in WebDriver IO, working in JavaScript. Language so fast that sometimes your statements actually execute out of order, which is just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I'm also a conference speaker, as you can tell. Been here, speaking here at Developer Shore. I'm really happy that you guys invited me over to do this. And I've had a lot of different clients. I've worked in lots of different fields. You don't necessarily need to know much about the field that you're automating in. I've worked in medical device manufacturers. I'm not a doctor. I've worked over at a floral delivery company. Don't deliver flowers. Couldn't tell you one flower from another. Worked in a video game rental, a home appliance manufacturer, entertainment delivery company, survey department at a major Illinois university, and most recently I've been working at Guaranteed Rate, which is a American mortgage company. Test automation is my passion, as you can see, and I've worked in all sorts of different tools, like Test Project, Test Complete, Test Selenium, UFT, and also Test Rigor. And so today we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to see. And by the way, we're going to do a lot of demos today, so I hope you find it really cool and interesting. What are we going to learn? Well, normally when I do a automation presentation, we talk about all sorts of different methods and classes and things that you do to make your framework, your code work really well in Python and Java, JavaScript, whatever we happen to be, Ruby on Rails. But today we're going to be doing it a little bit differently because we're working in a codeless tool. We're going to go cover some of the basics like doing an enter, a select, a click, and assert. Talk a little bit about what I call the magic object model, which is slightly different from the page object model. Talk a little bit about variables, reusable modular design, and also horizontal testing and mobile testing, all in the next hour. Can I squeeze it all in? I don't know. Why would we want to do automation like this? Why would we want to do codeless? Well, here's the thing about it is that when I'm doing automation, usually we have, it's like baking a cake. When you get right down to it, an automation framework is essentially a 3 to 5 layer cake with all sorts of different abstraction layers so that we can reduce our maintenance and stuff. But the problem is that some of us are brand new to writing code. You might be just your first day trying to learn how to write Java and solve all the stuff, the coding that evolves in that. And depending on your language, it might be 6 to 18 months before you get really proficient at the chosen programming language. In fact, Java is such a big footprint. I know it's very popular. However, it takes a lot longer to write code because there's a lot more code to write because of the nature of the language. That's one of the reasons why I say I like BASIC. I know I said it's kind of weird, but I like BASIC because you spend a lot less time writing your framework and writing code because there's less code to write, and doing it rather than doing it in Java. And if you do it in JavaScript, my gosh, it's so fast. All right, so not fast to write, fast to execute. JavaScript actually executes a little bit faster, quite a bit faster than Java. BASIC executes a lot slower than Java. So I normally go through this whole little puzzle piece over here, but today we don't want to spend all that time. We just want to know if I can get an automation script that can be set to run today. Just give me the tool. I don't want to learn any code. Just get it to go, click something, select something, assert something. So let's get on with it over here. We're going to start off with the first thing. The first thing I usually do is we're going to go click on something. Now, I've got a sample, and as I said, I like to use the most basic version. And this is a sample line of code from Micro Focus UFT. So if I wanted to go and click on the Get in Touch button, I'd have to go and get my browser object, which has a page object, which would contain a web button object, which is called Get in Touch, which has some sort of a locator behind it, XPath, CSS, or maybe even a regular expression. And then I would execute the click method upon that element. And but when we're doing codeless, all I'd have to do is say, click on the Get in Touch button. That's it. I mean, that's pretty straight English up there. And in fact, you don't have to put this all in the same way. You could just drop out the word on and say, get in touch button. Click Get in Touch button. Just click Get in Touch. In fact, you could reduce your maintenance in case the wording inside of the button that you're trying to hit might change slightly from release to release. Then you would go and say click touch, and it would still work. I know you guys don't believe me, right? And by the way, I'll show you that in a second. I just want to mention that this is plain English going left to right. Of course, developers think a little bit differently. We read from right to left. In fact, if you say take that period there and consider it the word on the, if we read it backwards, you would hear me say the plain English click on the Get in Touch button on the P page on the browser. So it's all backwards over here when we're doing code. Let's do it forward. Let's make it easy. All right, let's take a look and see how easy that might be. So I'm going to do our demo over here using TestRigger, which is a low-code test automation tool. And it is available. You can do desktop web testing. You can do mobile testing. You can even do native and hybrid mobile testing. I've already got my projects already set up. So I am going to go over here to Developer Shore. And I was trying to think what would be a really good website in order to test. And I thought, developershore.com might be the perfect website to go and do some testing against. And you can see over here, I have Developer Shore as our base URL, our starting point for all of our test cases. And I've got a whole bunch of samples we're going to go through with in the next hour. And so we're going to start off with our basics. So over here, this is our basics. I'm going to go take a look at our test case and see what it says over here. It says the basics. Click client and assert. This is the assertion one. I think I'm sorry, I've jumped ahead to the assertions. I'm jumping ahead of my process. Let me go over here and go find my click method, which test case, which I think actually I've written so many test cases, it's on my second page. And yes, it is. All right, now back on track. Didn't mean to jump into the middle of the presentation. Let's go take a look at this. Here we are, we're going to go and click on the Get in Touch button. And then I'm going to go click on the Developer Shore. So I'm going to go over here to Developer Shore. And I want to go and click on the Get in Touch button, which is on our page somewhere, isn't it? Down here. There's our Get in Touch page. It's not even on our front page. It's not displayed when we first open up the whole thing. It's just this community of great devs. So I need to jump down over here and click on the Get in Touch. And then I'm going to go back. Once I get onto this page, I'm going to go back to the original one, which is to go click on the Developer Shore. If I click on this image over here, this icon, this image, it should bring me back to the front page of the application. So we'll see how that works over here. Okay, we're going back over here, so we got us to the front. But this is more interesting if we watch this from the live view. So I'm going to go hit retest over here. And you'll also notice that we're doing it in a couple of different ways, like I showed on the slide. The first time I'm doing it, I'm just going to click on the Get in Touch button. The second time that I'm going to click on the Developer Shore image. Don't have to write any XPath or CSS or anything like that. You just tell the tool what to do and it goes and does it. So the next thing I would do is say, you know, I dropped out the on in there so I can have the wording slightly different. And then I can go and click on the Get in Touch button and then click on Developer Shore image and then click on Get in Touch button and then go to Developer Shore. Now it was in queue. Queue is basically setting up a virtual machine in the cloud. And now we're executing over here. We can see we actually took screen captures. That's kind of small, isn't it? Let's go down over here. This is our text over here. By the way, one of the things that Developer Shore has is that it has a little thing down here that says, hey, we use cookies. Are you okay with that? Would you accept all that? We actually handle that automatically. You can put that in automation. If you're working in Cucumber or other tools like that, that is a hook at the very beginning that catches something all the time. And low-code automation tools have the exact same thing where you can put something that executes before the test or before a step, both of them. So it's sitting there saying, hey, I saw that, and I'm going to go click accept all. So we're going to go move forward a little bit, and we can see that the next thing it says is go click on the Get in Touch button. Where is it? It's right here, as you saw. I scrolled all the way down to the bottom to go find it. Here you can see the scroll bar has gone all the way down to the bottom. It's found the Get in Touch button, and it's gone and clicked it. And if I move forward to the next screen, I will go forward. It tells me, it shows me the screen capture of the next picture, which was this community of great devs over here. Let's see, I have, it's in the middle here. So I've clicked on Get in Touch over here, which gave me the next picture, which was, it took us to the Get in Touch button page over here, where we're asking for my name, my email, my phone, and my LinkedIn contact over here, which is all cool. Great website. We're all looking good over here. And in fact, there's nothing causing any sort of issues that I can see. Everything's all green. And in fact, it passed. And we, in fact, at the very end, I said, you can go and just say, it's a little hard to see on here, so just click touch, find the word touch. By the way, take a look at this. Touch is in all lowercase. It's case insensitive. Get in Touch is, I believe, in all capitals on the website in the DOM behind the whole thing. Doesn't care. Test Rigger will actually go out there and go find the match and click on it. Take you over to where to the next page where you're going to go get in touch. So that's our basics. It's just the first thing of just doing a click on that. I'm going to go and close this out. We have a passing states. One other thing is screen captures are great, but what you really want to have in a good automation framework is to be able to play back a video that shows exactly what happened when you executed all of these steps. And in fact, TestRigger has that capability. I just clicked on the link and it will show you exactly what it did when I recorded this demo, basically clicking on get in touch and then clicking on the developer shore image all the time, clicking on the image back and forth. One moment, please. I'll be right back. Sorry, guys, had a little bit of noise in the background. Didn't want to get that distracted over here. Okay, so we are showing you the video that got recorded. Now, the important thing is that if you're a developer and you don't have this feature built into your automation framework, you're going to have to spend some time to put it in there because it is very helpful. So you're going to have to figure out, where am I going to store these videos? How long am I going to keep them? How long can they be? How do I kick them off? How do I show them to somebody? When you're getting into no code test automation tools, there is really none of that time that you have to spend, because as I said, I don't want to spend time expanding my framework. I want to spend time maintaining my framework code. I just want to spend time writing more test cases and analyzing the defaults, the defects as I find them. All right, cool. So I've gotten this taken care of over here. So I'm going to go back to our presentation. Well, we've got our clicks, we've got our video stuff set up. So I am going to go back over to our test cases. Let's go to our next part over here. I think I got the point across. Click is pretty easy to do. What else can we do? Well, as I said, you don't have to use XPath and CSS, but what if you really, really want to use XPath and CSS? Absolutely, you can actually do that. You can, and there are small times, rare times where you definitely want to have some unique locator in order to identify an object. In this case, we're looking at clicking on the contact button that's at the top of the developer shore website. I can do it as a CSS where I say, hey, there's a link, which is an anchor tab with a title that contains the word contact. One thing I'd like to make a good point, and whether you're a developer in SDET or you're looking at low-code tools, is when you're writing a locator, I always recommend don't write an exact match locator. Don't say title equals contact. Always make it a generic contact, and see if you can make sure that you have a single locator generic enough that it makes one match, but because if you say title equals contact and the word and the name of the button changes from contact to contacts or our contacts or something like that, if it's an exact match, title equals contact, you're going to have to do maintenance and go back to your page object model and update that. So what I usually say is make it generic by putting the star equals in there for a CSS in there, and going and then doing the XPath in the same thing over here, and doing this as contains text over here. I'm saying ouch. Why am I saying ouch? Because it's actually touch without a capital T. So and 1 second, I'll be back in like 5 seconds. I'm sorry for the second interruption. Be right back. All right, I'm back over here. So sometimes I do want to make also another point for developers on this side is that when we're talking about automation testing, which type of element do we want to use? Do you want to use a CSS or an XPath? And this is actually a question I will ask on my interview questions. I'm interviewing someone for their knowledge of how well they do test automation, how well they are able to write locators. And I asked them, I said, which is better, CSS or XPath? And I always get the wrong answer. The wrong answer is, well, you always do CSS because it's faster. There are reasons to use one over the other. However, the only reason you would ever want, the answer I don't like is because it's faster. Yes, they are faster by milliseconds, nothing that you could actually visibly see with your eye. You'd have to time it with a timer and putting that into your framework just to prove that a CSS locator is faster than an XPath. The reason you would ever want to use an XPath is if you wanted to match on some text. As far as I know, CSS does not allow us to match on some text inside of it. In this case, if I do XPath, yes, I can match text inside of it. CSS doesn't do it. However, since CSS is slightly faster, then the CSS would, the reason you would want to use CSS is if you're working with shadow DOMs, because the cool thing about shadow DOMs is that XPath locators do not work in shadow DOMs. So didn't want to leave our technical developers out of this, even though we're looking at low code automation. Little tips over there, the real reasons why you would want to use CSS and XPath and know when it is, and not just because of the meager changes in speed. Okay, so I was talking all of that stuff about, let's see, how do you do an XPath and a CSS inside of Test Rigger, inside of a low code automation test tool. So I'm going to go down to our demo over here, and I'm going to go and see how we're going to do this. We're going to click on a CSS selector called title, and then I'm going to go back, and then I'm going to go and click on touch, which was the lowercase version of get in touch, with just the OUCH. And I'm going to go and retest this, and we're going to go take a look and see how our screen captures look as we go along with that. All right, so again, like I said, we are loading up an environment in the cloud. One of the major things you also get to do when you're an automation engineer is architect is you might have to maintain your own environment. So you might have to learn something about Docker. You might have to learn something about Jenkins, how to write a Jenkins file or a Docker file in order to get things spun up in the web on AWS or Google. That's a whole environment, and configuring your environment, downloading all the files that you need, everything they need to interact with, all the updating all the files that you need. And here we go. I've got this over here, and we're going to go and take a look at this guy. We have some details over here. This is what I was going for. And I'm going to go and click on contact. I'm going to zoom this in up here. As I said, this is the CSS selector version where I use the CSS to go and click this. So it's basically click CSS selector and the name of our selector up there. Contact got hit. That worked perfectly fine. And I will close that. And let's see, where's our other one over here? We wanted to go and get our second one, which was to go, and my screenshot's blowing up. Oh, great demo. Let's see. Oh, okay, here we go. This was our locator that we wanted to hit, where we're saying click on the XPath, clicking on get in touch. If you remember, click get on touch would give us the let's get in touch button. So the screen capture today, well, the screen capture going back didn't quite do what we wanted it to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this test case. And by the way, go back is just clicking on the back button. So I'm going to say click developers shore image. I'll do that and make sure I spelled it correctly. I hope I did. And I'm going to go and retest this. We'll give that one more shot out there. So while this is coming up, just back to that point, what I was saying is that you're going to have to maintain your own environments. And hopefully you know what kind of environments you're working with. Because remember, when you're working, some of us are Mac users who are writing code. Some of us are Windows users. I'm a split of both of them, in case you're wondering. And then when you're running stuff out in Jenkins or on out on the cloud, you might be running in a Linux environment. So you have to know 3 different environments in order to do this as an automation engineer. The point is that when you've got a tool like this up in the cloud, all that underlying architecture stuff is all taken care of by the tool itself, and you don't have to spend your time worrying about your environments. So let's go see how this one worked over here. We are running over here again. You can see how quickly it was for me to go and change and update that. So over here, it says go and click the X path using ouch over there. And that actually clicked on the, we're waiting for it to finish up our last execution over there. And I do know on our previous run, we did see the get in touch. We do see the get in touch over here. So in just a moment, we should have that screen capture of the last screen capture and having the test pass. And if it doesn't, we'll take a look at some of the details that are going on over here. The great thing I like about Developer Shore is that it's not detecting any issues behind the scenes. There are ways that this additional checks that tools like Test Rigger do to look at the back DOM and see if there is an issue with anything that's going on with the page. So that is taking a little bit of time. So I'm going to move on to our next slide. I'll come back to that because it will wrap up shortly over here. So it did show that we can click on XPath, we can click on CSS, although it is faster if you just let the system behind the scenes go and click on a button. So we got the clicks all taken care of. Next thing we're going to look at is the enter. So the enter is basically, we're going to go to a browser page, and if we're doing this in UFT, it would be to go and get a web edit, first name, and enter Paul. Over here, and we do a codeless, we already said click on get in touch. I'm going to enter my name, Paul, into the first name field. So that's pretty easy. Enter Paul into first name field. Let's go take a look at that enter basics. Let's see if I can find that on the test. Oh, and this, by the way, this did complete over here. And it did actually find that button eventually and did click on it and move forward. So we can do a check mark on that one. Took a little bit of time on that last event only because we're doing a lot of other XPath stuff behind the scenes. It should be faster. But like I said, I recommend just sticking with plain English and let the magic code behind the scenes do the work for you. Okay, so that's our click. So we're going to go look for our enter, and I'm looking for my demo. I think it is on my other page. So let me go back over there. Yeah, enter is basics, and I've got a failure on it. Let's go take a look at what that might be. It'll be interesting as we go along. Okay, let's edit this test case. And I'm going to go, it was verifying the developer is checkbox checked. So I wanted to get into some verifications of checkboxes. We can do that in a slightly different way. I'm going to click on get in touch. We already saw that. I'm going to enter Paul into the name field. And when I ran it, let's go take a look what happened over here. We did click on touch, got in touch. We already saw that. And if we go to the next page, we have name up there. And if I go in here, it said enter Paul into the name field and then click on the developer's checkbox. Look at this. It actually combined the steps together. It both put in Paul over here and it clicked developer. Clicked on developer over here, which activated the checkbox. So the next thing would be to see and validate that the checkbox was actually checked out there when we're doing that. Again, let's see, we will go to our next portion over here. Now, it's saying over here, let's go verify that the checkbox developer is checked. Now, why is that? The cool thing is, you always have to have good information being given back over there. So it's basically in the checkbox by this descriptor developer is supposed to be checked, and it thinks it was not. So that's something to go take a look at. I will tell you that no automation framework out there is perfect. So it actually looked at this. It looked at this item over here saying this is developer. So what I would need to do is say I am a developer and be a little bit more specific about what I'm looking at. Here's the great thing. You got your screen capture. It tells you exactly why the test validation failed out here. And that's because I used a string that was just too short and identified multiple elements, and the tool went and looked at this. This is really nothing wrong with test rigor. I've done this several times myself because I've attempted to write all sorts of automation frameworks that do the same thing, and dealing with this a locator that finds multiple elements is usually the big one of the biggest challenges over here. Okay, let me go on. We've done some validation, a little bit of that, and even looked at how to identify, when errors occur, what can we see when that's occurring. It gives us good information. Next thing is variables. All right, we need to do variables. When we're doing it in code, okay, my variable name is my name is Paul. I know if you're a Java person, you'd say, hey, that's supposed to be a string, my name. Okay, we're not doing Java, we're doing the basic over here. And we're going to go, and if we're to do this, there's our element description, and go and enter in my name. So it will take that, my name, the word Paul, and put that in there. So let's go do this in Codeless. I'm clicking on get in touch, and I'm entering a saved value called my name into the first name field. Very similar to what I just did before. I'm going to go and do the basics. We're going to do the advanced one. Let's go take a look at that. I want my these assertions. I want my advanced basic variables. That's what I want over here. So here's my basic variables. We'll take a look at what the script looks like again, very short. Click on contact and enter saved value, my name, into the name. Let's go take a look at what this did. It went over here, got to the page, and then it entered my name, which is Paul. Now, where'd that data come from? When you're doing automation with a regular automation framework, you want to have some data saved off somewhere. And we actually have test data for this project. And there it is. My name is Paul. So now we know where the data came from. We just called it a saved variable. We referenced it, brought it in, and used it. So that's all cool. Pretty easy peasy. Let's go back to my presentation, which is sitting over here. Cool. So that was really easy. I've got a saved value called my name, and it's got the text in there. The next thing I want to do is talk a little bit about reusable modular code. The major problem you've got when you're writing in code is that you don't want to put these lines of code in there over and over again. Copy, enter, copy, my name, copy, and have it in every single test and be copied. Because if anything changes in here and you have to change 10 tests, or you got 100 tests or 1,000 test cases, if your login procedure is suddenly asking for some sort of IP address for some reason that they might want to do that with a drop-down box, you now have your login is changed, but you've copied your login over and over and over again into multiple test cases. You're going to have to change every single one of those. First, what you want to do is in coding, you're going to have create a function that will encapsulate all that. And in fact, when I do my frameworks, I always have wrappers for every method that I do. So instead of actually having enter as the method being, I actually write my own enter function and then pass it an element and a variable. And then I do all sorts of cool things inside of it, such as, well, first of all, checking to see if that element exists. And if it does, okay, then go execute what we want to do. And if it doesn't exist, go spit something out. Like say the element didn't exist. Also a good point, when you're logging stuff out, when you're coding, always put a variable in there. That's my golden rule when we're doing code reviews. You have to have a variable in every log statement, because I don't want to say, hey, a failure occurred. I want to know a failure occurred on what page, clicking what element, trying to enter what data, and what was the locator that I used, the XPath, the CSS, my output. I put lots of variables into my output. from the programming side. On the codeless side, well, we're going to click get in touch, and we enter saved value into there, but we're going to basically replace our text in there. So I'm going to show you a little demo of what I'm talking about over here. So what I have for this example demo here is that I have, we are going to go reuse code over here. So inside of this particular test, I have a code that says open the URL and go to the handbook of developer Shore. Not only do I have it in this test case, I've got it also in this one over here, which is go to the handbook. And I've also got it in a single point of change up here. There's a third one. I hit over here. It's a very short little demo, but basically it's the exact same thing. If this URL ever happened to change to handbooks or something like that, I'd have to go and change all three of these test cases. Who wants to do that? That's no fun. So in order to get reusability in a low code automation tool, you need to have what we call, reusable rules. We call these reusable rules over here. And in this case, I have a reusable rule called navigate to developer Shore. The name I gave it was navigate to developer Shore handbook. I'm also using a label so that I can identify which test cases are impacted by it. I have copied in that one line of code that says go open this URL and jump to the handbook. And now I'm going to go and click and say I can save this. I can do updates to everything. If I happen to change the name, I can change all the references in. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find every test and replace this step. So when I click on that, it comes back and says, hey, Polly, you've got 3 different tests that actually use the exact same lines of code inside them. Do you want to go and replace them all? Yes, I do. That's the reuse of code, reduce maintenance, and the single point of contact change over there. I will say replace selected, and we're going to go back over to our test cases and take a look at those 3 that I just opened up. So it is code reuse. And now if I edit this, you'll see that the test has changed and it is now put in navigate to developer Shore's handbook. Well, I'm going to go update. We're going to go retest that and make sure that that works. We'll look at our other 2 test cases as that's executing over there. If I edit the test case, now it no longer gives me that URL. It just gives me navigate to developers Shore handbook. Same one for my third one over here with a single point of change. And navigate to the developers Shore handbook. So now if I ever have to change that particular reusable rule, I could go over here to navigate to developer Shore handbook. And let's say I am going to go to, let's go change it to something about. And what is the URL for the about for developer Shore? It's just basically about. So let's go over here. And we will go and put this URL in here. And then all 3 of these should take us to a different spot. I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to go and save. If I do save and replace steps, nothing should come up because there are no steps to replace. We're just updating the information there. And it does give us information about what we did. Tells us good information, no steps were found to replace on this because we just did in our last demo. Again, good information, good error reporting that I love. And this is important for developers. Never say an error, throw an error that says an error occurred. That is a good developer writes a good descriptive error that tells you what is going on, and a great developer tells you what you recommends, what you might do to avoid doing that error in the future. Set some sort of variable, change your environment, something like that, that gives you the user a clue as to what they did and also what they can do to avoid stuff. So I changed this to about. I'm going to go back over to our test cases, and we've now got reusable rules giving us our reduction in maintenance. I'm going to go over to reduce maintenance over here. Last time we did it, it went over to our success over here. So I'm going to retest this, and we should come up and end up over here at the about agency and community for the best remote developers. So let's go take a moment to take a look at this. You can see it is in the queue. And it does take a little bit of time because I actually don't have a paid license for this. Now, I will let you know, most tools out there that to do this are usually commercial tools that you do have to pay for a license. Some of them do offer like, a 30-day, a 90-day trial license so you can work with it. TestRigger does actually offer an option to have an open source use of the tool. The only thing you have to agree with is that your results and your screen captures actually are publicly displayed, so they could be searched to see what your results are. So my advice is don't show your password if you're writing test cases when you're doing that. Aside from that, you should be fine. Also can be run internally with through a firewall, so you can have it accepted to be coming through the firewall. If somebody else sees your URL, that's okay. Everybody else in the universe is blocked by your firewall, which is the way it should be with a testing environment. Okay, so I did this. What do we come up with? Agency and community for the best remote developers. The screen capture was a little small on there. In fact, I'm sorry, it wasn't small. The page is still building as the screen capture was taken, so we're all good with that. But we do have, we would have a video on that showing that it works. But we did change from the handbook to about. It shows you that that's what it went to, even though the test case itself doesn't specifically tell us the URL. Change the URL on 3 different test cases, all by having reusable rules. Let's see what the next thing is, because I know I'm going to keep going to the wrong one over there. Let's go to this guy. All right, so we've got modular reusable code. We're going to talk a little bit about data sets in just a moment. I did want to return back to our test data and mention something else. Let's see if I've got the demo set up. Yes, advanced encrypted variables. We're going to look at this. As I said before, if you're going to do put in some data and you're putting in a password, we usually want to keep the password secret. Sometimes we go through Vault and put our secrets in the Vault and pull them over there. TestRigger could certainly do that if wanted, but if you don't have something like that set up for your secrets, you can do it this way. I'm going to go and enter my name into the name. I'm going to use the saved variable, my secret password. Now, how do I keep my password secret? I'm going to go back over to my test data, and it says over here, my secret password. Can't see what it is, completely encrypted. Not going to let you know what my secret password is. There's no way that I would ever let you know what my secret password is. Let me go run that demo and see how that works. We're going to go over here and retest the encrypted variables. It'll start launching up there. There's a little bit of a debate between whether you are concerned about passwords, actually, because in data, if you are working with real data, production data, definitely there's PII, personal information, that you want to make sure is kept from the public if you're using that from your production side. However, if you're working in completely fictitious generated information, then does it matter if the social security number for Mickey Mouse gets out into the public, which happens to be 999999999? Maybe not. If your password is password 123 because you're in a test environment, how concerning is it? It's like having a Fisher Price phone and you're concerned you might be making long distance phone calls and running up the bill. Makes no sense. It really depends on which way you want to look at it. Okay, so we have gone and closed the accept all on this one here using one of our reusable rules, accept cookies, as we mentioned at the beginning. And over here, I have clicked on contact, and then I'm going to go over and take take a look at what our next page, which was, it dropped us off over at Let's Get in Touch. And we are going to look at the next page over here, which is going to go and populate my name. Now, in this case, I'm getting some slow responses out there. As a developer, we could write a bunch of code in order to make our screens, our test scripts execute just about as fast as we can. Sometimes we get ahead of ourselves and our framework breaks because the page is still building while we're trying to find an element. That's a whole different discussion we don't have time to talk about today. Low-code test automation tools do have the ability to do speed optimizations. So there is a lot of different changes that can be done in order to speed up how much time is being used. And in fact, I'll turn off page, the measuring the page load, because it can also do load checks on that. Again, a discussion for another time. You can allow parallel testing. I actually have up to 1,000 test systems that I could go and run. Today, I'm just running 5 at a time because it's a small demo. But imagine that you've got, let's say, 100 test cases. And if you ran them one after another, that would take a lot of time to get 100 test cases done. However, if you launched 100 virtual machines and each one of them had one test, the time to complete 100 test cases would be the time it takes to complete your longest test, which might be 2 minutes, which is pretty cool. There are, like I said, a lot of different configurations in order to make things go faster or slower. So if I were to make a change, I would save that. Let me jump back to my test case and see what our progress is as we are going along. Still going in progress over here. That was one of my cooler demos, and he is taking a little bit of time. Looks like I have to go talk to some developers about that, but we will basically move on to next thing. We'll have that wrap up in a second and see if our password is out there. So I showed you about global variables. The next thing is, what if we had one test case that went over and over and over again with different types of variables? We could certainly do that by referencing something in code to go and iterate different names like Paul and Bob and Steve. In TestRigger, you can do the same thing. You can actually attach a data row set and have a new user, current user, and a disabled user. Here we have new user, current user, disabled user, and have the different data being populated in there, which would put in Paul, Bob, and Steve. So that's our advanced data sets. Let me go take a look at that. This guy is completed. He completed over here. So let's go take a look and see what he did. He said that he has entered my name, just Paul, into the screen, which is up there. And then it said, enter saved value, my secret password into the subject. Here's the subject. My secret password was, what do you think of the demos so far? It's going pretty good. That's my personal opinion, but I'm a little biased on this. Cool. Let's go back to our test, which I was saying is we're going to do the advanced, where we're going to go through multiple advanced data sets over here. Now, in this case, you can see every one of these test cases has the option to link to a data set. And then I've got a user data sheet set up over here that has 3 variables in 3 groups. My test data is sitting over here. I'll jump back to that, and we'll come back to that in a second. These are my global variables. This is my data set over here. This is my user data sheet, which has a description, has 3 different names, Steve, Paul, and Bob. And there we have our rows, our variable names that we're using, first name, last name, age. So I have 3 different bits of information in there. And each one of these has been populated, much like a spreadsheet over here with Paul, Bob, and Steve. So if we were to run all those, we can see the same test case being executed multiple times. Without being a developer, you don't have to know how to write a while statement or any sort of looping statement. It's just basically built in. You link it to the data, and it will tell you, hey, I just went over here and I entered in Paul's name on this particular run. And if I close this out and I go to my drop down, I'll say, hey, the current user, who's that? Is it Paul? No, it's Bob. Bob's our current user over there. Cool, we got that. And of course, if we have a disabled user, who's the disabled user? The disabled user is going to be good old Steve over there. So there you go. That's our execution of having the same test. And by the way, we'll edit that test case. Clicking on get in touch and enter the saved variable first name into the name. We ran it 3 different times, same test with 3 different bits of information in there. Stuff you could do day one when you're building in test automation is that, I want it now. I want the automation now. And I want, someone who can help me on this. I do want to let you know, when I talk to people about low code test automation engineers, manual testers love it. Managers love it. The people who don't like it, I hate to say it, it's the people attending this conference. It's the developers. I really feel for it. I've been doing this writing code for 20 years. And I totally get it. It's like, what do I get to do? Do I get to write some code? Not a whole lot. Well, then I'm not interested in it. I totally get that. That's fine. Low code automation tools means, yeah, there is a little bit of code. If you're a JavaScript developer, yes, you can actually enhance and extend test rigor, and any particular low code tool should be able to do that. So it does have a place for developers. So I hope I brought you all back in, get you back on my side in order to do this. For the other side, where we have developers who are the actual application developers that we're testing, it makes them happy because we can actually have people, they don't have to be able to take over this framework. Even if they do, it's pretty easy. One of the things people tell me is that, hey, you have to write your framework in Java because our application's Java. We all have Java developers over here. And once you're done as a consultant setting this up, we'll just turn it over to the Java developers who are writing our application so they can test their application and write their unit tests. And a question I always have after that is like, do they have time to do all that, to take on that extra work? Or are they basically locked down to some sort of set in stone delivery date that they have to hit that they're going to miss, which means QA is going to have less time to test, which means more bugs get into market? There's a long way to go around it. Just to say, yes, there is a place for developers in a low code automation tool. We still need you guys, and you guys are the awesome and best. Okay, let's go on. We did the variable sets. Now the next thing we're going to talk about, let's go get really super advanced, horizontal testing. Well, first of all, let's talk about what's vertical testing. Vertical testing is when we are just adding in more and more test cases. We're just building up our test cases. Well, let's say we want to expand horizontally. Where is the money that we are leaving on the table? Sure, we know we are a Windows Chrome shop, and we know that all of our Windows people are working, but do we know that Edge works on Windows? Do we know that our tests, our application, our website works under Firefox on Windows? Do we know that Chrome, Safari, and Firefox works under a Mac? Do we have time? Do we have enough time for our manual testers to test that on our Mac? Maybe there's some weird thing that happens on the Mac Firefox browser. There's someone out there using it in that combination, but we don't know about because we're just a Windows Chrome shop. What if we want to make sure that our Linux people are working? We've got Chrome and Firefox on Ubuntu Linux. Are we sure that our application is going to work out there? We are increasing our coverage of testing from probably 80% with Chrome Windows to 99%, getting all 3 operating systems and all multiple browsers. And yes, there is today, as of last month, only one test that's left to do with Windows Internet Explorer, which is a message that pops up and says, don't you think it's time you start using a modern browser like Chrome, like Edge, like Firefox, like Safari? Yes, I do have that test case. And I also use monitoring. I don't have time to really say much about that, but yes, I do have a test case with Internet Explorer that executes every 4 hours just to make sure that we get that message that pops up on our application, which is cool because I don't have to have manual testers or automation engineers spending their time doing that. Paul, you're making all this stuff up. There's no possible way that we can extend these test cases into multiple browsers and operating systems. Well, let's do a quick check on that. I'm going to go and add in Windows. Let's go to, what am I working on? Windows. Let's go add in a Mac. We'll do Mac on Safari. I'll add that, and I will go to Ubuntu, and we'll add, let's see, Firefox on Ubuntu. No guarantees on what my results are going to be, but we will test Developer Shore on those 3 environments and see what happens when we do our basic test again. I'll go back over to my test cases. I'm not going to run all of them. I'm just going to run my basic at the bottom because time is running short and I have 1 or 2 other things to show you guys. So I'm going to go over here to my basic click and I'm going to hit retest. Fortunately, I've got this set up so that multiple tests will execute on multiple environments will load up in the cloud. And you can see over here, there's Windows, Chrome, Safari, and Ubuntu is kicking off. In fact, I'm going to click on this magic little link, and we're going to see something a little bit different view. We're going to see all 3 of those environments kicking off and seeing what it's doing. We're getting some nice greens out there. That's cool. And as each one of the environments launches and starts getting reactions, you start getting screen captures. As you can see, looks like Mac Safari is freaking winning the race. So if you ever wanted to have some sort of validation as to what environment and which browser is the freaking fastest, I would say this seems to say that Mac Safari wins the race. Ubuntu Firefox comes in a close second as it is finishing up its test. And over here, we're still waiting on Windows Chrome to get through the test. The point is that all of this is giving us all our screen captures as we're going along. There is some differences being identified over here because I didn't put any validations. This was just click and navigate back. If I had some validations, we would say, oh, here's some of our clients. You know what? That's actually perfectly fine because no, that's not perfectly fine. This is actually kind of cool that you can see the differences between where everything started and what changed. And the page builds, these are slightly different page builds, but in this case, we're getting different results on that. We can start looking into, okay, what's the difference between these environments and Windows Chrome. In fact, Windows Chrome says it failed. What happened at the very end? Oh, it had a page that was having an issue with. So it did do the back and came back on that, clicked on the developer's images, but it did actually come back to our main page. So okay. This is also not unusual in test automation with with any sort of our framework. We do have it's not perfect. It's always going to be about 95% where you are getting good results, and then there's a 5%, 3 to 1% that is something strange has happened. And in fact, what does happen? All sorts of things could impact this. Like our network could be getting a little glitchy. We had a network drop. Something happened there. Our developers decided to do a push at the very moment we were starting our tests, and now all of our backends are down. So it's pretty cool that you can do this. What do you do when you have an issue like that? How do you test that your network, if your network is down, if you have a transient error? You should have the ability to go and do a retest. And in fact, developers test rigger does have that capability. Give me just a second. We'll get back over to our main screen. We'll go down to settings, and we'll take a look at our retesting. And yeah, you can set it up to retest failed tests only when they fail, so that you can actually eliminate the transient issues that may occur while your testing is executing. All right, cool stuff that you can do almost on day one. So let me see what our getting to our endpoint here is, and I'm looking for my PowerPoint, which I believe I had left over here. All right. So we know what horizontal testing is. We know what vertical testing. Horizontal testing is basically adding in all sorts of different browsers, operating systems, Linux, Mac, Windows, and testing. So there's only one area left that you might want to do today, which is horizontal testing into mobile devices. Okay, these guys come up, and we want to look at Android and Apple. In this case, we will take the exact same test cases that we were running here in our demo all along, except we're going to run them on a Android device. Now, I'm going to spend all my time rewriting all those test cases that I've got over here. I certainly hope not. Here's my test cases. I've got 12 of them that I've written, and I can also do a shared suite, which means I can share this suite with another application, another project, which is my Developer Shore Android mobile project. I also marked it as a child out there. That's my timer saying that I'm up. So we're going to wrap this up in the next 2 minutes here. Last and final demo here, everybody. I hope you had a great time watching all this. I'm going to go back over to my test suites, and I'm going to go over to my Developer Shore. And this is my second project. We've been working in this Developer Shore, which originally started as a Linux under a Chrome browser test. We're now going to take a look and see our Developer Shore mobile test, which has shared everything from our initial project. We can add more test cases out here. That's no big deal. We could go and add stuff in here. The thing we're going to do is that we're going to go and rerun some of our tests out here. And let's see, I've got these all in queue. So let me see if I can. I think these are all sitting in queue. I've got these 3 over here. 1 second. Let's see if I can get this to demonstrate this. You know what? I'm going to go do our mobile phone testing. We'll do a dual test on this. This is going to be cool. I hope everybody can see my video. I do have my phone in front of me because there is one big advanced thing that you can do with test scripts, and that is this is disabled, so I'm going to go and enable it. We're going to go and basically it's what this is going to do is say call my phone from my saved value, my Twilio phone, and verify it's ringing. Remember, I test data over here. This is my Twilio phone. I do have a Twilio phone, which is virtual phones, so that if you're doing something like 2FA, MFA validations, or even messaging or emails, you can send that messaging to a phone through Twilio. Test Rigger can go pick up the super secret code to authenticate your brand new user who just logged in when you're doing testing. This is my phone number. I have it encrypted, so not everybody in Europe decides to call me up. I know you're all my friends. But I don't want to have everyone know my phone number. All right, so to wrap this up, I'm going to go back to my test cases, and I'm going to go and execute this guy that I inherited. And let's go hit retest, and let me see if this works correctly. This is going to go and basically set up. It's in the queue, so it's in the queue waiting. Hoping this guy is going to work. If not, I have a backup that I can go and do. And mobile testing is kind of cool. Let me go open this up so I can actually see the screens. It is now hitting the selectors hub. This is the web version, but it should be changing over to the mobile device version of the screen capture in just a moment. And once that's done, our demo will be complete. So this takes about 2 minutes and 1 second. It should be a lot shorter than that. The 2 minutes, that is the time it takes to create a virtual machine and get it up in the cloud, plus the recordings of the videos as they are executing. Here we go. And we actually threw an error. This is okay, part of a demo, because I like to throw an error, throw something that says to show what an error looks like if it has a problem trying to find it. It did go to our application out there and had a problem going over to try and do a browse. It does give us full information of details, so we do have one extra demo over here. It says phone call Twilio needs to be integrated and configured. Okay, another good point. I want to tell you something. This is why I like what a good error message. I mentioned it earlier here for developers. Always write a good message and something that gives you a clue as to what's going on here. The problem is that it needs a Twilio integration confirmed in order to do this demo. And before I set this up, I did not do the integration. It's on my other project, but in this case, this is my account SID, my auth token, and my phone number are completely missing over there. So we'll never go and not have a good demo. We're going to come back and we are going to go back over to Developer Shore. We're going to go pick up that test case that was inherited. It should be our first one at the top. Mobile phone tests. I am going to go and retest this, and we'll have our final demo for this presentation. I do appreciate everybody sticking with me for the last hour and sticking with a few minutes over the hour. I was hoping I had questions. I do have a chat up there, so while this is going off, I'm going to take a look. See, yes, these will be there. I meant to ask you if you had questions. Let's see. Arthur says he's late. Will there be recording? Absolutely. It's going to be tomorrow. And I do have to, there we go. I've got my phone call coming in over here. Here we go.
Greetings from Test Rigger. Please disregard this call.
Okay, final test. Day one, you write a test case that goes and does a call through a phone out in the cloud that calls my phone. And I believe it is calling me a second time because I had set up.
From Test Rigger, please disregard this call.
Remember, I set up this doing under Windows Chrome, OS Safari, and Ubuntu, and I'll probably get a third call in just a couple of seconds here. Because we ran it under 3 different environments. I know we're kind of getting to the end here. I don't see any questions out here on the list, but we did do a lot of stuff. I did it without writing hardly any code. Actually, I did it without writing any code. And remember, the big advantage here is that you're shortening that time that it takes you to learn a development environment. We do need developers. We do need on the project because you can customize and extend this. So I'm going to say thank you to everybody who came here. If there is any questions that you might have, you can always reach out to me. This is where you can find me. I'm going to move this off the screen. You can find out a little bit about my history at testguild.com/103, a little hour presentation about where I started 20 years ago. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, Dark Arts Wizard, email me at thedarkartswizard@gmail.com. If you want to check out my LinkedIn, I'm LinkedIn at PM Grossman. And if you ever want to become SDET and start writing automation stuff and frameworks and stuff, I do recommend Practical WebDriver IO. Up on top here, I'll see with my camera. I actually go and buy these books and I write in them and I take notes. I like books. I do have some stuff that I do digitally online and search, but I actually prefer to have books in front of me. In fact, I get notebooks that I keep track of all the things that I do every day today. So books are great, man. Don't let them die. I'm going to say that is about all I've got over here. So I'm going to stop my share. And again, let's see if there are any questions over here. Can Test Rigger work with native mobile apps? Absolutely. Since that was, we kind of missed it at the very beginning. I will show you just that. Yes, you create a brand new application and you can do mobile web testing. You can do native and hybrid mobile testing with that. So great question from Andre. Thank you so much. If yes, probably you have some advices. Do I have some advice on mobile testing? My best advice is don't get bogged down in how many devices you're going to go test on. Let me show you. You can do this in Android, or we can, and Android has, this is what I mean when I say don't get bogged down in this, because you've written 100 test cases, you've got them executing on 9 different browser operating systems versions, and then you can take those test cases and execute them on multiple different environments of Pixels, a Nexus, Samsung Galaxy. Don't go crazy on because that's logarithmically becomes impossible to execute everything all at the same time. It does become a little bit expensive because each one of those does need its own licenses. Not for multiple operating system browsers. You can do all your test cases on 9 different combinations, 10 if you include Internet Explorer. But for the mobile devices, each one needs its own project, and then you can share your test scripts from project to project. Create it on one, execute it on another. So, like I said, don't go crazy about that. I hope that answers Andre's question, and we are like 10 minutes over. So at that point, I'm going to turn it back over to our host over here, Vlad. It is all yours, and it's been a pleasure talking with everybody out here.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for this interesting topic, and especially thanks for testing our website. So if we don't have no more questions, so it's all. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Take care and be safe.